We're live. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome back to Rival Demons. So I was noticing as I was looking at myself in this, I can see myself on the screen that I've got like a little, it's literally an indentation in my nose from wearing my glasses all day. So please excuse I shouldn't have touched it because now it's like even more red. I'll just like pull my hat down like this. It'll be fine. So anyway, there we go. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed Monday's episode and getting back into the readings. I feel like there's just a whole new energy in the air. Like, oh my gosh, writing book 11 was really, really hard, but at the same time, it reignited my passion for the story and where it's going to the ending. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I know so much of what's happening, but I also know that there are secrets still waiting for me to discover in this final draft. So I have been spending the last 3 days, like you can see this over here. I have my whole plotting notebook set up. I'm going to be doing a video about starting back on that book and what I'm doing to get prepared for it. I've got my plotting stuff ready, like the board is ready, the sticky notes are ready. Actually, I did tell George I need to make a trip to Office Depot probably tonight or tomorrow because I'm out of some of the colors of sticky notes I need. And it just made me feel like I just got so filled with joy because I basically have a life now where I just get to play with stationery sometimes, like entire days where putting together a planner and putting Post-it notes up on a plastic board is my life and I get to do it for a job. And it just made me feel so excited and happy. And I just am spreading that gratitude and joy out into the world because there are a few jobs that we get to play with stationery as much, but writers is one of them, or anyone who plans or does things like that. It's like I worked this job once as a secretary, I guess you would call it. It was kind of like an executive assistant to oh no, you had to refresh the feed to see me. Weird YouTube. I don't know. Hopefully my internet is okay. It's been storming here a bit today, but I worked shortly out of college. I worked this job where I was like an executive assistant to a person that the company did like direct mailers and stuff. And my first day on the job, the like office manager was taking me around and she like opens this closet and she was like, and this is the like supply closet. And my mouth just dropped because it's like all these dry erase markers and notebooks and binders and paper and Post-it notes and pens. They were all just like black pens or blue pens, but still it was like, ooh, how much of this stuff can I take back to my desk? And she was like, anything you need, you can grab. And it was just like the most joyful thing. But I hated that job, to be honest. It was super, super boring. But I get to do it now by my own choice, and it just makes me really happy. So that was a fun little thing. I also so I've talked about this a little bit before, and I didn't really have a chance to implement it before now because of the pre-orders that were out. We all know what's going to happen to pre-orders in the future. I still hope to be able to utilize pre-orders, but never until the book is done. Once a book is finished, and I don't mean rough draft. Somebody actually emailed me and suggested this, and I just kind of wanted to respond because it is a good suggestion. So we were talking about possibilities of how to develop those internal deadlines or whatever, or replicate the external deadline without it being so harsh. And one suggestion that was emailed to me, which is a great suggestion, is to wait to announce a release date until I'm done with the rough draft. But I have done that usually in the past, and it's still, for me, the edits sometimes can take a left turn and the whole like 40,000 words of the book has to be rewritten. So I feel like even that is going to be a little bit risky for me. I think that I shouldn't announce a release date until the book is through my beta readers. Like if all that's left is a proofread and some formatting and stuff like that, I can probably safely go ahead because the story is done. But until edits can really derail you. Sometimes it's really smooth, but I can't anticipate that early enough. So I think that I'm going to have to do something else, at least until I get back on track. But anyway, one of the things that now Angela says you don't need to announce anything early, surprise us. I will say I really cannot remember exactly what I did before. But I used to do that. Like earlier on in my career, I used to just wait until the book was done. And then I'd be like, guess what? The book is coming on Tuesday. And a lot of people told me that, you're being crazy. This is the wrong way to run an indie career, because you got to do the pre-orders. Like you got to do these long announcements, and you got to do a cover reveal 60 days in advance, all that stuff. And I just never did that. And I found success anyway. So hopefully you can take that as some encouragement. It's like, there are people who are, like way out in terms of like, they're done with the book. They've got 6 months to market and they still don't really sell any books. And then you've got other people who surprise fans, and there's really no rhyme or reason. There are things that you can do that can help you sell more books and be more, obviously missing a release date is not the way to run your career. It's bad for everybody involved. But at the same time, it's like what I want to do and what I want to get into in the future is what I've called, I mentioned this earlier last year, I think, or earlier this year, is a game board strategy, which is basically an idea that, they also told me not to write YA, right? Nobody makes money writing YA. Nobody reads YA. Wrong, totally wrong. But a game board strategy idea is not necessarily knowing when something is coming out, but knowing the order of things. So like knowing that the way Amber McHugh, if you guys haven't heard me talk about her recently, she is my business mentor. I work with her in a group called Freshly Implemented, which is a business mastermind. And I've been in this group for 3 years now. She's incredible. I think she's just launching a course called CEO School. And if you are interested in learning more about business, like running your own business, I would highly recommend checking her out. It's Amber McHugh, MCCUE. So she's got that running. I think it's launching right now, but I don't know what the price is on that, but I'm sure it's an amazing course because she's great. But anyway, she suggested to me, basically, a game board would be kind of like a tripwire where I know the order of things. Like I know I've got to write the book first. I have to then send it out to betas. And once it's at betas, that can be a tripwire for, now I can announce the cover reveal. And then once I get it formatted and it's ready to go and get uploaded and put on pre-order, then I can announce the release date because the book is done and it's already up and ready for you guys to order. And I don't have any chance of missing the deadline because it's already finished and it's already published. It's just now waiting. So, that could be kind of like a tripwire. And then I can know that once this book is published, I know exactly what's the next book. So not necessarily being able to put it on a calendar, but knowing that this action or this milestone leads to this next piece, and then this leads to the next piece. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but just kind of having little tripwires or certain cues that are specific to me. So that's something that is on my plan for this quarter. I'm pretty sure I know the order of things that I'm going to do them in. And this is why I kind of brought it up, because if you can see behind me on the board, I have my 3 calendars here. This is July, August, and September for Q3 are up there. But up above that, I have my game board. So up above that has all the covers that you haven't seen yet, all of the Summer of Ghost Stories, book 12, the Lost in the Night psychological thriller that I hope to complete at some point, the cover for the 4th and hopefully final book of the Eternal Sorrows series. So all of that stuff is hiding up there. So now I'm going to have to be careful when I do like pans of my office in Instagram stories and stuff like that, so that I don't show those things. But I think that that is going to be helpful to me. And maybe that will actually help me basically stay motivated, and we'll see kind of how that goes, so that I can know if I could just finish this rough draft, I get to move on to the next trigger. So we'll see. So the game board is for me and not for the fans. It's just something that I know that once the rough draft is done, I can do this. And once the betas have finished the book, I can announce a cover reveal. And then once the book is uploaded, I can announce a pre-order date and stuff like that. So that'll let me know kind of what the cues are for the next stage of the process. So I'll keep you guys updated on whether that tends to work or not. So we'll see how it goes. Hi, everybody. Hi, Amanda. So today we're going to be reading episode 6, and I did kind of rearrange the episodes a little bit since we got a little off on episode 4 with the delays. So I'm hoping these will be some good places to kind of end with a dun dun dun. It's not super hard to find them because there's lots of good stopping, like dun 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 kind of moments. So we've got 10, well, really it's 9 pages to read today, and I think it ends in a good place. I saw that, I think it was Carrie said, I want to hear more about the notebook that Harper was using on Wednesday. I know I should have described the notebook because it's like, is it one of Essex's notebooks? Is it a magical notebook? What are these notebooks? But I don't really ever go into it. Maybe I could write a little story about that. Kelly says, your story about Red inspired me to write my own take and spin on Red Riding Hood since there aren't many on that fairy tale. I love that. You'll have to let us know. Is it finished? Are you just now starting it? Is it going to be a novel? If you enjoyed Red and you guys remember Rayla and Charlotte from that, the two sisters, Rayla is the seeress from that story. They do make an appearance in Vengeful Darkness, just to let you know. So I won't say in what capacity, but they are in there. All right. So a little bit of a recap on Wednesday or Monday's episode is that Harper and Marianne finally got a chance to go down to the marketplace. They got a little bit of freedom. They got a black card from Andros, which kind of works like a credit card down there. And then they got red and black armbands that has his insignia on it so that people will know like they're under his care. And they go down there and basically they still find some resistance from people that are from the demons down there that are like, seeing them as humans, and humans have only caused pain. And so Harper goes into a bag shop because she's looking for a backpack because she's a planner and she's already knowing that someday she is going to train and leave this place. She does not want to spend her whole life there. She wants to get back to Peachville and fight against the Order. So she's already thinking ahead, like if I get a bag, then I can take all my things with me when I go. But the lady refuses to sell her a bag. And when they're heading out of the store, Marianne sort of falls into the arms of a demon named Essex, who has kind of admired them from afar because he's heard some of the stories about their fighting against the Order, and he seems to kind of have a crush on Marianne. So while Harper is trying to think through what she can do, Marianne is off with Essex pretty much all the time, and they're enjoying their time together. But one day Essex comes back to the apartment with Marianne, and Harper notices that he's kind of hiding a book. And when she asks him and presses him about what is this book, she finds out that it's a list they found in one of the hunters' caves that details the names of all the demons who were taken through the portal gate to the other side. And since Essex lost his father to the Order, he wanted to see if his father's name was in that book, and it wasn't. But through this, she finds out that there's a library inside this underground that is extensive and just filled with books, but it's not available. It's not a public library. It's a very secret library. But she's thought the same way they had gone into Marianne's Crow Village to find and see if there was any kind of spell that could help them free Airden from the Order and save his life. Maybe there's information in that underground library about this. So she's determined to get into it. So there's our little recap, and we are going to go ahead and get started reading. So this is chapter 23. It's complicated. I sat in the hallway until the sounds of the marketplace died down and the underground went to sleep. It was hard to keep my eyes open, but I needed to see Jackson. Since I had no way of contacting him directly, my only option was to sit outside his room and wait. I was glad we were the only ones living in this hall, or else people would have started getting suspicious. So far, I'd been out here for at least 4 or 5 hours. What was he up to all the time that he almost never came back to his room? With a twinge of jealousy, I realized Leah was never in our room either. Did that mean they were together a lot? Had his feelings for me changed so much that he would honestly prefer being around her more than me? Luckily, I didn't have to wait much longer before he came walking down the corridor. If I'd had to be out there much longer alone with my thoughts, who knew what I might have come up with to worry about? Of course, it didn't help that when he finally did appear, he wasn't alone. "Hi," I said as he and Leah approached. "What are you doing out here?" Leah asked. "It's practically the middle of the night. Did you get locked out?" "No," I said, not letting her snarky attitude frazzle me. I turned to meet Jackson's eyes, ignoring Leah altogether. "I need to talk to you, and since I never see you, I figured this was the best chance I had of getting you alone." Jackson turned to Leah as if asking for permission. My cheeks grew hot, and I fidgeted while I waited for him to respond. Leah rolled her eyes. "It's fine with me," she said. "Just don't do it out here where someone might see you. Bring it inside, okay?" I looked around, wondering who exactly she thought was going to see us in an empty corridor in the middle of the night. I didn't protest, though. I just wanted to talk to him. I didn't care where. I turned toward his room, expecting him to invite me inside, but he moved in front of the door and shook his head. "Let's go to your suite," he said. The three of us walked into the bright light of the suite. Leah said goodnight and slipped into her bedroom. Marianne had gone to bed hours ago. After weeks of being apart, Jackson and I were finally alone again. My mouth grew dry and butterflies fluttered in my stomach. Every inch of space between us burned with tension. "What is it?" he asked. "Did you need something?" His businesslike tone hurt me. "Why are you acting like this?" I asked, apparently missing the filter that should have been working between my brain and my mouth. "Like what?" he asked, shifting his weight and avoiding my eyes. "Cold," I said, "like there's nothing between us." He looked up, a split second of regret in his eyes that was immediately replaced by annoyance. "You do realize that you're the one who was acting cold to me first, right?" My face grew tense. "What did you expect? You broke my heart," I said. He closed his eyes and ran a hand through his hair. "Is this what you waited up to tell me?" I drew in a long breath and tried to calm my rocketing pulse. "No," I said. "I wanted to talk to you about the possibility of joining in with you guys on whatever it is you're working on down here." He snapped his head up, surprised. "Joining in?" "Yeah," I said, pacing. "You're obviously meeting with Andros and the council a lot, and I have to assume you're talking about plans to fight against the Order, right?" "Something like that," he mumbled. "Okay, so I want in." He shook his head and walked over to the couch, leaning against the back side of it. "It's not that easy, Harper. The council accepted you as a resident. That doesn't mean they want you in on all their secret plans." "Am I not a part of this?" I asked. "Have I not proven my commitment to destroying the Order? Or is it just that you don't think anything I do is going to make a difference?" Jackson sighed. "It's not about what I think." "Yes, it is," I said. "I've seen the way Andros hangs on every word of yours. He trusts you. He listens to you." He shook his head and paced the area in front of me. "It's complicated, Harper," he said. "I wish I could help, but things take time down here. I need more than a couple of weeks to convince them to change the entire way they think about human witches." Bullshit. I didn't believe him. There was some other reason he was shutting me out. I could feel it, and I could tell he was struggling with it too. But why? Did it have something to do with Leah? He was always looking to her for permission these days, as if he answered to her. "Fine," I said. "But what about training? Can you get me into any of the resistance training classes?" Jackson's eyes grew wide as if I'd just asked him to fly me to Mount Fuji. "Why would you want to do that? And how do you even know about the training classes?" "Do you think I want to be weak and powerless for the rest of my life?" I asked. "If I'm stuck down here, I want to at least make the most of it. I'm bored to death. I feel like a prisoner." He lifted a hand in the air as if he were going to say one thing, then put it down and turned his back on me, changing his mind. After a few moments, he finally turned back to me and said no. "I can't even ask for permission for such a thing right now," he said. "The training is for the soldiers, Harper. They don't even let all the demons down there into the training. They're certainly not going to let a human in." I walked to the door and opened it for him, so frustrated I wanted to scream. "I don't know what's gotten into you," I said, "but you're not yourself. The Jackson I knew back home would have fought for me. I don't know what it is that's changing you here or why you can't just tell me what's really going on, but I miss you. I miss the real you. Jackson stood there just staring at me. I could tell I'd struck a chord with something I'd said, but he still didn't tell me what was going on in his mind. Everything I've done, he said, walking toward the door. He paused right in front of me, his face so close to mine it made my heart ache. His green eyes were filled with secrets and sorrows. I've done to protect you. I watched as he made his way back to his room, not once looking back. Chapter 24, Right Place at the Right Time. The marketplace hummed with life. The late afternoon crowds filled the makeshift streets. Barely anyone noticed me anymore. I had become a permanent fixture in the grand hall over the past couple of weeks. I don't know if that meant they had begun to trust me exactly, but at least they no longer seemed to fear me. Today and every day since Essex first told me about the library, I'd spent at least a few hours here watching the soldiers and the council members come and go. I wanted to know how often the soldiers seemed to go on missions, and I wanted to see where it was the council members kept disappearing to. Since the council's library was such a restricted place, I knew I couldn't just walk up and ask where it was. In some ways, I had become exactly what they'd all feared I was all along, a spy. The difference was that the last thing I wanted to do was spy for the order. No, I gathered information for myself only. If Jackson and Leah had insisted I be included in all the meetings and treated as an equal, I never would have gotten myself into this situation of spying and sneaking around to get my own information. But since they had decided to shut me out and treat me more as a visitor than an actual participant against this war in this war against the order, what choice did I have? So I watched. I made notes in my journal. Since I didn't have a clock or a sun to keep time for me, I kept time based on the rhythms of the people. In the mornings, when I heard the door of our suite slam closed, I knew Leah had left for her daily meetings, or whatever it was she and Jackson did all day, out of sight from the rest of us. In my mind, I labeled this as the beginning of the morning. I spent this time working on my magic. When the smells of food on the grill stretched all the way down to the suite from the marketplace, I figured it was about noon, lunchtime. Then, when the voices grew louder and the market buzzed with conversation and excitement of another finished workday, I knew it was quitting time, somewhere around 5 or so in the afternoon. This was when the soldiers and the council quit their work and emerged from their secret caves like tiny ants from their hill. It took me a few days to pinpoint the exact location of the training area. At first, it seemed the soldiers just magically appeared out of nowhere. I recognized them by their matching black uniforms and serious looks. I had expected the army to be made up of mostly men, much like the army back home. I was pleasantly surprised to see an equal number of men and women had joined in the training and fighting against the order. Around this time in the afternoon, I tried to position myself in different parts of the market, hoping to get a glimpse of the soldiers pouring out of some secret corridor or area. It wasn't until the 4th day that I found myself in exactly the right place at the right time. I got to the marketplace a little early and walked around toward the very back, as far away from the entry staircase as I could get. I walked along the back wall, which, as far as I could tell, was just a filter that should have been working. Was just a solid wall with no caves or entrances of any kind. I was actually trying to get to the other side of the market when part of the wall next to me rose up like a trapdoor. Startled, I jumped back and wedged myself between the fabric of 2 nearby tents. Immediately, my fear was replaced with secret joy. A group of soldiers emerged from the hidden door, talk of the latest training session on their lips. I stayed hidden for the next half hour as hundreds of soldiers gradually poured from the corridor. When they were all through and the door was closed for the night, I stepped out of the dark alley between the tents and took a mental picture of my location, just across from a purple and orange tent that sold jewelry with red stones inside. I memorized every detail of the area, then ran my hand along the wall, trying to feel the outline of the door, but there were no grooves or cracks to show it had even existed. A magic door. Later, I sat down in my favorite little cafe and drew a map of the marketplace, marking a special X for the secret training ground of the Resistance Army. Chapter 25, Follow Your Friends. Finding the library was not as easy. Unlike the soldiers, the scholars and council members didn't wear matching outfits, which made them much harder to spot. I tried to remember the faces of the demons I'd seen walking with Jackson from time to time, but I soon lost my patience and decided to stop in to see Essex at his work. "Hey," Marianne said with a smile as I walked into the tent. She was sitting on top of the sales counter watching Essex direct a bunch of needles to make matching shirts in a variety of colors. "What have you been up to so far today? I feel like I've hardly seen you at all lately." "Oh, just walking around," I said casually. I had kept my activities from Marianne because I didn't want her mixed up in it if I got caught. I leaned in and whispered so that Essex's mother couldn't hear me, just in case she was close by. "What about Essex's mom? Does she still give you the evil eye?" Marianne giggled. "Not really," she said. "I think she's getting used to me. Look, yesterday she even gave me this leather cuff. I think it was a sort of peace offering in a way." She held out her wrist and showed me a black leather cuff that clasped tight around her entire wrist. On the top, it was embroidered with the initials M.A. in silver thread that sparkled when she moved her wrist from side to side. "That's beautiful," I said. A jolt of regret ran through my heart. If an old woman with obvious prejudices toward humans could have accepted the fact that her son had made a very close relationship with a human girl, why was Jackson so certain no one here would understand our relationship? It didn't make any sense. Something wasn't adding up between us. There had to be more to his reasons for breaking up than what he told me. For the most part, I'd done really well at not falling apart about the whole Jackson scenario. I'd thrown myself into other projects and found goals like finding the library or working on my magic. But with as much time as I spent alone these days, there were definitely a lot of late nights when I lay in bed just thinking about him. What was he doing down here every day? Were they planning something important? Was he going to go back for Airden? Why was he keeping so much from me? Did he miss me the same way I missed him? "Are you all right?" Marianne asked. I came out of my thoughts and smiled. "Sorry, I think I spaced." "You did more than space," she said. "You went into some kind of sadness coma. What's going on with you lately? I thought you'd be glad to be out of Peachville and away from all that crap the order put you through." I sighed. "I am glad," I said. "I just think about Lark and my other friends a lot. I wonder what they're up to. I hate not knowing what's going on in Peachville." That wasn't exactly a lie. I did think about Peachville a lot, wondering if anyone had spoken up about their plans to sacrifice my life and transfer the line. I knew Mrs. King didn't approve, and I was sure Lark and her mother were dead set against the idea. But did they speak out? Had they been punished, or did their fear keep them quiet? Between worrying about them and thinking about Jackson, it was amazing I was still holding on to my sanity at all these days. Honestly, it was the idea of having a plan of my own that kept me waking up and going through the motions each day. Marianne put her hand on mine. "I know what you mean about Peachville," she said. "I thought I'd be so glad to get out of there that I would never look back, but I can't help thinking about Courtney. I didn't get a chance to explain anything to her about our plan. She probably has no idea what happened to either one of us." I nodded, ashamed to admit I hadn't been thinking about Courtney in all of this. To tell you the truth, I bet they just wiped her memories of us like they did with me when I first got there. "Well, I kind of hope they did," she said. "That should at least keep her safe from them." She had a point. My hope was that all of my friends and allies in Peachville would be safe and sound when I finally returned. I couldn't bear it if they'd gotten hurt because of me and the choices I'd made. But I hadn't come here today to talk about Peachville. As much as I cared about the people back there, I also knew that there was nothing I could do for them until I was strong enough to fight against the order. For me to find that strength, I needed two things: training and information. If I could find the right spell book, I could end this whole thing forever. I could free all of the primas from their demons and change the entire game in one instant. In my heart, I knew that spell existed. I just had to find it. Listen, I need to ask Essex something about the library, I whispered, looking around to make sure there were no customers in the tent or people lingering outside. Marianne's eyes grew dark, worried. Here? She asked. Can't we talk about this back in the room later? I don't want to get him into any trouble. It'll just take a second, I swear. She chewed on her lower lip and finally nodded, motioning for Essex to stop his work for a second. He walked over to us, a sweet smile on his face. He placed his hand down on the counter beside Marianne, and I noticed her pinky slide over to touch the side of his palm ever so slightly. Ask him quickly, she said. What do you know about the council's meeting place? I asked. I've been trying to find the entrance to the library by following some of the council members around, but other than Andros, I'm not completely sure who is on the council. And what about the scholars you talked about? What do they wear? Essex looked around nervously. Then he leaned in close to me. You'll never see the scholars, he said. They never leave the council's wing, as far as I know. They are like monks, hermits. I blew out a hard breath of frustration. Crap. So how else am I supposed to find this library? The question was more for my own benefit. I hadn't been expecting Essex to actually have an answer for me. Follow your friends, he said, the princess and the twin. They are going there every day. My eyes widened. How do you know this? My shop is in a very good location here on the end of the row, he said with a sly smile. Many believe they are talking in secret, not understanding that those of us inside the shop can still hear them. I hear many things, and one thing I hear is that the council and your friends are meeting in the library almost every single day to discuss a new plan for our people. There are many whispers on the streets of these events. Follow them, and you will find the library. A customer walked into the shop, not hiding her surprise at finding two humans talking so casually to the shop owner's son. She almost turned around to go, but then changed her mind and turned back toward us, an attempt to smile coming out as more of a grimace. Hello, Essex. I was hoping you could help me with a new dress for a party I'm attending this month, she said. She kept glancing my way, obviously uncomfortable in the presence of a human. I was just leaving, I said. Thank you for your help with the new backpack. I sincerely appreciate it. Essex bowed to me. Anything for a friend of Andros, he said. As I walked away, he turned his attention to the new lady customer. Now, what kind of design did you have in mind? I slipped outside and made my way back toward the suite. Following Jackson and Leah wouldn't be easy, especially since Jackson could usually sense my presence from a mile away. But that gave me an idea. He might be able to sense my presence, but I was usually able to sense him too. The feeling had been somewhat diminished here while I was so far away from Airden, but still, I might be able to use that connection to find Jackson. It was too late in the day to try anything now, but after my magic practice tomorrow, that's exactly what I was going to do. Chapter 26, Close Enough to Feel. My new goal was to reestablish my connection with Jackson's energy. There had been a time when I could feel him like he was a part of me, an extension of my own energy. I knew part of that connection had to do with his twin brother, Airden. Since Airden was a part of me bound to my family's line for 100 years, it was only natural for that to extend to Jackson as well. But I knew our connection was more than that. No matter what was going on between us now that we had come to the underground, it didn't change the fact that I loved him. We had saved each other's lives. Surely that counted for something. Wouldn't that kind of thing leave a mystical connection? I was counting on a combination of all those things. I sat alone in the comfort of my bedroom, my legs crossed under my body and my palms facing upward. I became centered, focusing on the feel of my own power coursing through my bones. When I was sure and solid in my own power, I switched my focus from myself to Jackson. I sought him out with my mind, extending my magic like hidden fingers that stretched out to the entire underground. I searched for any sign of him, wanting to feel that connection and hoping to be able to recognize him even in a crowded space of 1,000 other demons. That first day, despite hours of meditation, I failed. I couldn't feel him at all. Was he too far away, meeting somewhere deep in the bowels of this place, far from my reach? Was the soul stone above our heads messing with my focus somehow? Or was I simply too far away from Airden to feel any connection to his brother as well? The next morning, I spent my typical magic practice time in meditation instead, with the same bitter results. It wasn't until the 5th day of trying that I finally found him. In my quiet state of meditation, a whisper of him crossed into my mind. My body lit up like a firefly, the tiny hairs on my arms standing up. Somewhere he had stepped into my range and my body had reacted. At first, I couldn't tell where he was, only that he was close enough to feel. I pushed my excitement down to the bottom of my mind and instead focused on what I knew of the underground. I started imagining the suite, then the hall where we all lived together. I rebuilt the place in my mind like a ghostly map, uninhabited and shadowy, but clear. The process was a bit disorienting at first. My body was here in this room, but my mind was floating, free from the restrictions of flesh. I didn't sense him in any of these places, so I stretched my thoughts even further, struggling to stay focused despite the slight dizziness I felt. Finally, near the small cafe where I liked to write in the afternoons, I saw him. In my vision, I could see impressions of other energies bustling past, but Jackson's form glowed, bright and steady. He stood in the marketplace talking to someone, but I wasn't good enough yet to identify anyone else by feel. For all purposes, I might as well have been standing there beside him. I could feel him that strongly, and the longer I focused on him, the stronger my focus became. I swam in it, letting the closeness of his essence surround me like water. When he moved, I moved with him, sensing his path step by step with amazing clarity. Then he stepped into a cave on the far north side of the marketplace, a cave I had never been in before. Like a light switch being turned off, he was gone. No matter how hard I tried for the rest of the day, I couldn't find him again. Was it simply that he'd gone somewhere my mind's eye couldn't envision? Or was there some kind of block set up in that particular cave? That afternoon, I strolled through the marketplace looking for the cave he'd disappeared into. The problem was, it didn't exist. Chapter 27, Do You Know This Word? I ran my hand along the stone wall. Just like the hidden door where the soldiers went for training, the cave where Jackson spent most of his days was equally as hidden. There was no trace of it from the outside. Similar to the other one, this door was also in a far corner of the marketplace, tucked behind a few tents where no one would notice people coming in and out. I couldn't help but wonder why there were so many secrets in a place like this. Hadn't everyone come down here with the same idea and purpose? Why would it be important to keep the activities of the soldiers and the council hidden from the rest of the community? For that matter, why would they have a library no one could see? Why didn't everyone have a right to learn what they could about the Order of Shadows? Was the council really that paranoid about spies? I kicked my boot against the stone wall. Nothing in my plan was coming together like I'd hoped. The only thing I'd accomplished so far was learning a few extra magic tricks and establishing a new connection to Jackson, a pretty much useless connection now that I knew I couldn't follow him through this door. Still, I wasn't going to give up. I may be in hiding from the Order, but that didn't mean I couldn't be working on ways to fight them. My two main objectives hadn't changed. I wanted to watch the demons here train and see if I could pick up on some real offensive magic I could use to fight, and I wanted to find the books the Underground's resistance army had taken from the Order's hunters. All of this would have been a lot easier if Jackson had stuck by my side and worked harder to include me in his plans. As I made my way back to my room, this thought made me more and more angry. Why hadn't he at least introduced me to the members of the council? I was confident that if I'd had my chance to speak to the council members individually, I could have convinced them of my dedication to destroy the order. Anger fueled my steps as I tore through the marketplace with increasing speed. If I had to resort to more drastic measures, it was his fault, really. He could have made this a lot easier for me, but instead he deliberately made it impossible for me to do anything down here except sit in my room like a prisoner. Well, I had been a prisoner most of my life in one way or another. First, a prisoner to all the horrible foster homes, never really given any freedom to be myself. Then, a prisoner in Peachville, forced into a life I never wanted as future prima. And finally, when the order realized I wasn't going to bow to their will, a prisoner on death row at Shadowford. I'd had enough of being locked up. I wanted to be free, and the only way I was ever going to do that was to get more knowledge. I needed to know how to fight, and I needed to know how to break the spell that bound me to Airden. And down here in the underground, with or without Jackson's help, I had a chance to learn both. I reached the suite and threw open the door. Marianne and Essex sat on the couch together, playing some kind of game I didn't recognize. "Hey, Harper," Marianne said, raising a hand in hello. I ignored her, anger and hurt sending me straight toward my room. Then I decided, what the hell? It was time for drastic measures, right? I turned back toward them, my gaze landing on Essex. "What do you know about invisibility?" He drew his eyebrows together and stared blankly toward me. "What are you meaning by this?" "You know, being invisible," I said. "Going from being able to see something to not being able to see it at all." "Okay," he said, tilting his head to the side. "What is it you are asking?" I sat on the arm of the couch beside Marianne. "Say I was going to go invisible right now and start walking around the marketplace," I said. "How many of your kind would be able to see me?" "If you are disappearing?" he asked. "No one. Isn't that the point of disappearing?" I couldn't help but laugh at his logic. "Yes," I said, "but the point of the dark is that you can't see anything, but some shadow demons can see perfectly fine in the dark." He nodded, as if finally understanding my question. "You are wanting to know if anyone here has the special powers of seeing through invisibility." I thought about the wording of his statement. "Sort of," I said. "The only way I know to make myself invisible is to use a glamour. Do you know this word?" He brought a hand up to his lips and narrowed his eyes. "I am not certain. What does it mean?" "A glamour is when you can change your outer appearance to something different," Marianne explained, "not really changing it deep down, only on the surface." Sorry. He opened his mouth and nodded again. "Yes," he said, "you are meaning an artificial self, in a way, like the way you see me because of your potion, human." "Right," I said. "Can everyone see through those things? Like, if I made myself look like Marianne and walked around the marketplace, would people really know it was me and not her?" Essex shook his head. "I do not believe this is magic most of my people would be able to see, unless they were specifically looking for it," he said. "Up on the surface, they might be more careful with such things. But down here, I think you would be unnoticed." I decided to practice without letting him know I was practicing. "Thank you," I said, standing up from the couch. "Wait," Marianne said. "Why are you asking about all this?" I shrugged. "I was just curious." Marianne cut her eyes toward me suspiciously, but I just turned and walked back to my room, careful to leave the door wide open. In the living room, they resumed their game. I moved quietly into my bathroom and sat down on the floor, concentrating until my power was strong enough to let my body become enveloped in a glamour of nothingness. My body disappeared from the room, and once I was sure it was going to stick, I stood and walked quietly into the living room. I took each step extremely slowly so that I didn't make a single sound. I moved around the couch and stood inches from them, watching them play their game for about 10 minutes before I finally cleared my throat. Both of them jumped sky high, sending pieces of their game scattering around the couch. Essex was so frightened he was halfway to the door by the time I released my glamour and let him see that there was nothing to be afraid of. I didn't mean to scare you, I said, trying not to laugh. I just wanted to see if you'd see me. Well, we didn't, Marianne said, laughing. She held up a hand to her heart. You scared the crap out of me. Essex still stood halfway between the couch and the door, a blank expression on his face. Crap, I'd probably pissed him off. Are you okay? Marianne asked, hopping off the back of the couch to go to his side. She took his hand, and it was the first time I'd seen them touch so openly. Her hand in his seemed to wake him from his shock. Yes, he said, shaking it off. I have never had this experience before now. I honestly did not see you or even sense your presence in any way. You startled me. I apologized again, but in my heart, I was satisfied. It had worked. Now, all I had to do was make it work in front of about 500 demon soldiers. Chapter 28, The Hidden Door. Early the next morning, I slipped out of the suite long before even Leah was awake. I didn't want to miss it when the soldiers went into the training room for the day. Since I'd mostly just watched them come out in the afternoons, I had no idea what time the doors opened. I guessed it had to be pretty early. I hid myself between the folds of the tent, just as I had last time, and waited. About an hour later, as my eyes drooped with sleep, the first soldiers arrived at the hidden door. I pulled myself together and was able to make myself invisible just as the door slid open. My heart racing, I stepped from the safety of my hiding place and waited. To my surprise and great happiness, no one noticed me. I hung back and waited for the last of the group to file inside. Then I followed close behind. And just like that, I was inside. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, I'm glad I started early because I knew that was going to be a little bit of a longer chapter. I'm sorry that I messed up on the turning of the pages a couple times. I have to get back into the rhythm of actually reading. So these are all the pages that remain. So that is the end of episode 6, and we will move on to episode 7 next Monday. So Harper's Trouble. Trouble is her middle name because she's definitely always getting into it. But I always like this character because she questions everything. She wants to make sure that she is moving in the right direction always. And, she knows that if she stays still and doesn't have a goal or something to look forward to, she knows that she would probably be falling apart over Jackson. She would be obsessing over it. And she does admit that she does spend sometimes, late at night really thinking about him and what went wrong, and knowing that he's still, after all this time, keeping secrets from her. But she also understands that in order to survive, because that's what she is a survivor, she has to keep moving forward. She has to keep finding her purpose and giving herself something to do, because she's not going to sit down here in this underground and wait for Jackson when he's told her he's never going to come back to her. So she's just like, okay, I'm going to find a new purpose for my life, and I'm going to throw myself into that, even if it puts me in danger. And so she's obviously doing things that could definitely get her in deep trouble, if not killed, if she were discovered. So she's definitely taking a lot of risks. And of course, we know that Jackson can see through glamours. So that's why she's wondering if anybody else can. Like, is that a common demon trait or not? And so she's taking a big risk, because what if somebody else can? Have we seen a picture of how Sarah sees Marianne? I know that I have shown back when we did the Shadow Demons cast during this, I think it was during the Spooktacular, I showed some pictures of some of the main characters, and I feel like Marianne was probably in there. But I can share it again sometime soon. So I literally feel like I'm there when I have my eyes closed. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Evelyn. I have been so excited and tickled because I have my best friend has a teenage daughter, and she has never read my books or anything like that. And I never have sent them to her because, I never want to push my books on anybody. Like, if you want to read them, great. If you don't, then no big deal. But the other day, my friend Kelly was like, I want to see if Taylor is interested in reading these. So she bought her the first paperback, and like the very next day she was like, oh my gosh, my child, who's not much of a reader, sat down and read the whole book cover to cover. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. So she went ahead and bought her the next few. And when I talked to her this morning, she said that they're going on vacation on Friday, and she's worried she needs to order more books because Taylor's already about to start book 5. And she said last night, everybody was in the pool, everybody was hanging out, and there was Taylor like by the pool, reading the book. And she was like, aren't you coming to come play with us? She's like, I'm reading, Mom, leave me alone. So that just made me feel so good, because it's like an actual teenager seen in the wild, like reading my books and not able to put it down. So that made me feel really good. So yeah, that was a fun little thing. Yeah, I will post something, Carol, or I'll show you guys on Friday. I'll remember to pull up that photo just to kind of show you Marianne. But I love her character. I would love to write a side series about Marianne and Essex. But again, there's so many side stories that I would love to write. I feel like this is the kind of world where there are so many interesting characters that we could really go off on tangents for anybody. Like, we could go write a story about Marianne. We could write a story just about Lark or Brooke, or like you'll see later, there is a story about Allison, who, for those of you that have not read this far, remember Allison is one of the main cheerleaders. She's the other blonde girl that was Harper's same age. And she does have a story called After Midnight that is best read after book 6 of the Demon Saga. So there are a few side stories. And of course, then we have Sacrifice Me that's tied into this as well. But there's so much more I would like to be able to write. But then there's also a part of me that's like, really wants to take everything I've learned about writing a series and developing a world and do it better. And right now I can only build on what I did when I didn't know as much. So I'm torn between that, and I'm just not going to make a decision. Like right now, my game board only includes, this book 12, and then like Witch's Key and the Eternal Sorrows book, and then the Summer of Ghost Stories. But beyond that, into next year and beyond, it's like, what is going to be the next focus? I don't know. But for now, hopefully we're enjoying it. I don't really know when, obviously, this book 12 will be finished. But at the same time, I would still like, if you guys are interested, to do a read along of the previous books in the series, kind of like a book club where we discuss each of the books and have like some discussion about where we think it's going and how things are going to wrap up before the last book in the series. So that will be coming, but I'm not going to really even start thinking about when that will happen until after at least the rough draft of this one is finished. So I am embarking on my own reread, however. So I will be starting to read book 1 again. Even though we've just read them together, I'm still just going to go back to the very beginning. And I've got a special notebook that I'm using, and I'm going to be going through and making notes about every single little thing. Like, for example, I was just thinking about this as I was reading, that Marianne's little cuff that the mother gave her. I never really bring that up again, but that's a cute little detail that really would be nice to bring that back into the story, this little leather cuff that Essex's mom made for her. So just little things like that I really want to bring back into that final book to help make it feel complete. But I feel like this is probably going to be the most difficult book of my life, even though I feel like this year has been a year for most difficult books, longest books of my life. There's still at least one more to go here before I can say anything has been that difficult. So it's going to be quite the journey. But I also have been really kind of focusing on creating a daily writing habit for myself. So 9 to 11 every day has kind of now become my writing time. And I might actually, for those of you that are in the Discord server, which I just let me look, but we've got 62 people on right now. live, and then there are 604 604 people offline. So that means, you guys will see, for those of you that are fans of Heart Breathings, tomorrow will go my Q2 reset video. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had set the Discord. My goal was to get to 600, and now we're already at 662, and we're only 3 weeks in. So I definitely set that goal really low. But if you're interested in joining the Discord server, which is more of a chat like this YouTube chat is than Facebook, where you have like static posts, it's really, really fun to have those conversations. And we have a 6 Month for Life channel. We have a NaNoWriMo channel, but we also have a sprinting channel. And I was thinking that I would like to set up just that writing habit, if anybody wants to help with accountability, to show up maybe like every Monday or something like there, like Monday from 9 to 11, running some sprints there. Nothing like live chats, formal sprints, but just kind of having a group of people to meet up with. So if anybody's interested in that, if that time works for you, 9 to 11 in the morning, maybe we could come up with one day a week that we meet up in the Discord server in the sprint channel, just so I know, because I think that having some people there waiting for me will help me get there. So if anybody's interested, let me know. And Discord channel thinks you're there live all the time. Me too. So I'm kind of always logged in on my phone, but I always have do not disturb on too, because I don't know, I forget to turn it off. Laura says, or L Brownlee says, do books get harder the later in the series? I find them to be much harder the later in the series, but it's really different for every writer, because some writers hate the beginnings of stuff, that it's so hard to write beginnings. It's hard to establish a world. It's really hard to like make all those decisions about what's the town, who are these characters, all that stuff. And then it's easier for them once those rules are established to write it out, and go on to book 2 and 3. But I personally find that beginnings are easier because it's like a clean slate, the beginnings of series, because you're writing from the beginning. You're creating that fun part of the playground that you're going to play in for the next few books. But as I would say, if you're writing a standalone series, it probably doesn't get necessarily harder unless you just hit a set of characters. It's going to be so much about the characters and whether or not they are clicking with you. But if you're writing something like what I wrote with Fairhope or Willow Harbor, where it's like a couple per book or something, and every book sort of stands alone and has different points of view for each book, those were not harder. Those were about equal. Every single book was about equal. But when it comes to a dynamic series where it's really kind of like one long story where each book, has a cliffhanger or whatever and leads to the next book, I think it tends to get more complicated the further you get into it, because it's not just an encapsulated story. It's like every single thing builds onto the next thing. It's kind of like if you were building a Lego set, it's like building a series that's dynamic series is kind of like, just building one full huge table worth of Lego stuff. And you have to continue to building more and more like complex things. Whereas if you were writing a standalone series, it's more like you build a train, and then over here you build a plane, and then over here you build a building, but it's much more separate. Whereas dynamic series, everything interlinks together. Michelle says the guac is extra. You guys always ask about my teachers. I know the guac is extra, but so am I. I always love this shirt because it reminds me of like Moe's or whatever. Whenever you like getting a salad or a burrito or something, you say, I want guacamole on it. They're always like, that's extra. It's like, I know the guac is extra, but so am I. But yeah, it's a funny shirt. But anyway, okay, guys, that pretty much wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for being here and continuing to be here, for being so patient with me over the last few months and getting back into these readings. But I was excited to see so many people watching the replay on this book. And that just shows that even with a little bit of a break, so many of you are still here for the community. And that just means so very much. If you want even more of the community, there are lots of ways to join us. You can find links down in the description box if you'd like, of joining the Facebook group Coven. I don't think so. George has Andrew's on screens. I don't hear Evie, so I'm guessing maybe they're outside. I'm not sure. Usually I can hear her running around or something, but I'll make sure that she's on Friday. Because she'll want to see you guys. But we also have the Discord server, which has lots of different chat channels and things like that. If you're a writer, we have our virtual writing retreat coming up on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this weekend. Renee's been doing a lot of work for that and doing an awesome job with it. And to participate, all you have to do is just go into the group and you'll see live sprints. I'll be live from 9 to 11 every morning this weekend. Oh, I hear her. So we'll hold on just a second and see if she come down. There she is. You guys hear that little dingling sound? I can't even like turn it off because it's on when I do not disturb, because I'm tracking my time. So it goes off every 30 minutes. There she is. Everybody was asking about you. Do you know that?
Oh, this one.
This is going to be the only thing she says every time she sits down. I want this one. There's just like a buffet of things for her to play with.
This one.
Okay. You want this?
No.
No. You want this one?
No. I want this one.
You want this one? Yeah, I had a feeling. You want to say hi to everybody? Can you say hi?
Hello.
Can you say hi? I want this one. A little bit, a little bit. Look at how much her hair is growing. Look at this. I have no idea what to do with a little girl's hair. I've never had this before, but it's really growing so fast now. Are you the cutest?
Mm-mm.
Yes, you are. You're my precious girl. You know, all these people that are watching have seen you since you were just a few months old. Yeah. She does. She really does look like George a lot. And then sometimes in photos, she'll really look like me. So I think she's got kind of a good combination of both of us. So super cute. Can you sing your ABCs?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's not working.
It's not working. She's trying to play with my iPad now. So you guys can hear a little bit of the ABCs. She can sing them all, but you get a little bit of that little baby voice. She's playing with this. Was my treat to myself for finishing the book is I got myself a new iPad Pro and it was expensive, but it is so awesome. I'm kind of using it now instead of my Chromebook. And I love it. If you guys ever want to see a review of it, I definitely spent some money on it, but I feel like it was well earned. I figure if you hit #1 at Apple Books, you get to buy yourself an iPad. It's too bad they don't give us a discount. You know, Apple Books used to give us a discount as publishing authors on their Mac products, and then they took it away, I guess, because too many people were using it. But anyway, just a fun little thing. Thank you guys so much for being here and for being a part of this community. She just opened my chapstick, so we'll see how it is. But we will see you guys on Friday, and then we'll be back next week for episodes 7 and 8. But Friday is a coffee chat. I know I have said several times I was going to be posting vlogs for 6 months for life, but just, no, not on your face, but just as a little bit of a statement, I feel like I burned myself out a little bit more than I realized. So I just haven't had the energy to put toward the vlog, like put into the vlog the way I wanted. So it'll just be a little bit late. But I know actually there's several people that are not starting their 6 months until August anyway, but it is coming. So just be patient for it, because I can't overextend myself now energetically, or else I'm going to get into a bad place. So a little bit of extra rest still going on. She's just going to be drawing on her face. That goes on your lips, baby. Where's your lips?
Oops.
Yeah. That's your cheek. Yeah, it won't hurt her skin. It's so cute. It's better than a pin, which she also has used on her face. But anyway, we will have vlogs coming, and they will be great when they come, but I just need a little bit more time. So it'll be good when it gets there. But I will see you guys on Friday. I think there is maybe a post up in the Coven, but there's definitely a specific channel in the Discord server for Friday coffee chat questions if you want to leave them there, or in the group. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Friday. Can you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, we'll see you guys later.